The Secrets of Doctor Who is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who number 110.
One day, I shall come back.
That's it. I've been renewed.
Is when a Time Lord's body wears out, he regenerates.
I'm a Time Lord. I'm not a human being. I walk in eternity.
Bravehearty.
Change, my dear, and it seems not a moment too soon.
Unlimited rice pudding.
Position healers.
Wearing a mid-fin.
Fantastic.
I am Scottish. I can complain about things.
Ta-da! Ooh. Should be fine.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series Doctor Who, and today we're discussing the 10th Doctor story, Gridlock. And joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Aiken. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Corey Stika. Hi, Father Corey.
How's it going, Dom?
Good. So we're going to be discussing this episode, the David Tennant era 10th Doctor with Martha Jones, in just a second. But first, I want to talk to you just for a minute about other shows on SQPN that you might be interested in. A couple of shows that we've got coming up, new ones that we're not quite ready to launch just yet, but they're in production. One that you might be, it's sort of Doctor Who adjacent, shall we say, Secrets of Firefly. We recently did an episode of Secrets in Movies and TV Shows where we talked about Firefly in the broader sense of the whole single season and plus movie of this short-lived but much beloved sci-fi series. If you're not familiar with it, you should become familiar with it because people are crazy about it, even though it only lasted for 13 episodes on TV. We had so much fun with that podcast episode, and we had so much response from people that we decided to expand it. Now we're going to do a limited run series called Secrets of Firefly, where we're going to look at each episode on its own, plus the movie, plus maybe some ancillary materials like the comic books or other novels that came out afterwards, and maybe we'll wrap it all up with a retrospective sort of look back. But it's a limited run.
Shiny.
Yeah, very shiny. That'll be coming out soon. I don't have an exact date for you, but keep an eye out for it. Another one we've got coming very soon is we're doing a show called Secrets of Technology, where we're going to talk about tech news of the day, the stuff that's relevant to us, approaching it both in a way that average folks, you don't have to be a tech geek to understand what the issues at stake are in the news, and B, from a perspective that gives a sort of a diversity of perspective. Most tech news has a particular reporting has a particular bent to it. San Francisco, New York, with a particular cultural way of looking at things, shall we say? Well, we're going to be coming at it from a very particularly not big city, coastal, inside the tech industry viewpoint.
So you're moving out of Boston?
Well, I don't think of Boston as the big city. It's not Los Angeles, San Francisco, or New York.
Speaking as someone from the Ozark Mountains, Boston is a big city.
Yeah, and speaking from someone from Montana, all that area north of about, say, like Virginia is all one big city.
It's the megalopolis, I know. But
I didn't even, years ago, I was visiting a friend in New Jersey and we were going to drive to Boston. And this was my first time in the area. And I had always assumed I know very little or knew very little geography above the Mason-Dixon line. Uh-huh. And so I assumed that New York was north of Boston because obviously New York is the farthest north city anybody would want to, think of.
There's a little bit north of New York City, but yeah. But as far as this goes, most tech news has a particular viewpoint. The tech news reporting has a particular viewpoint of a particular political background. You might say bias to it. We're going to come at it from a different point of view to give a little bit of a diversity of opinion. We're certainly coming at it from a Catholic viewpoint because that's what we are. And so we'll approach this from those viewpoints, and it's not going to just be all tech news. We'll do some talk about cool stuff that we're working with, gadgets or software, other things that might be interesting to you. And so that's coming up as well. In order to find out about these things when they launch, we'll try to announce them on the show. But just to be sure, you should be subscribed to our newsletter. If you go to sqpn.com and subscribe to our SQPN Fan Club newsletter, you'll get occasionally, very occasionally, an email from us with that information about, especially about new shows that we're launching. So please do go do that and keep an eye out for that. That's coming up. Excellent. And I'm very excited about that, as you may be able to tell. So today we're talking about Gridlock, which is an episode from the third season of New Who. It's the the third episode of the season of Martha Jones's season, as Martha Jones is the companion to the 10th Doctor. And just to give you a little context of when this show broadcast, April 14th, 2007. So a little while ago. It's funny how it's
hard to believe.
Yes, yeah. how long ago this was. Don't try to figure out in your head, guys. Don't try to figure out how long ago, like compared to, say, the 7th Doctor to the 4th Doctor that was. When you look back and you're like
exactly.
How many years? Oh, that's quite a long time. So the recap for this one is the 10th Doctor takes Martha Jones back to New Earth in the year 5 billion something or other, only to find that the entire city has become a deadly trap, which is the TV guide version of the recap. So to jump right into it, the Doctor takes Martha Jones back to New York,
etc.
Yeah. And I've heard it described as this is the final episode of a kind of trilogy of episodes that take place on this planet, or have to do with this time period in humanity at this time. Because we had the first one, which was the end of the world.
The end of the world,
right? Which was Rose and the 9th Doctor, Christopher Eccleston, seeing Earth destroyed. The end of the planet Earth, the first planet Earth, and we met the face of Bo there. Then we had Utopia, which is where we were at the first time on this planet, and we met the face of Bo again, and the cat nun nurses who were harvesting people.
There's also another one in this series where Lady Cassandra comes back. It's the one where she possesses Rose's body for a while.
Right. Oh, right. And is that on the same planet?
That was this one. That was this one. Or not this episode, but that was the
Utopia?
Previous time at yes.
Oh, yes,
okay.
yes. That was the same one. That's right. Okay.
I think of those as two different episodes, but I guess maybe they're one, because I think of the cat nuns experimenting on people, and I think of Lady Cassandra.
Right.
Yeah, that's the same episode.
And so now we're back to this planet again, which is because
so we get to use all the sets.
Exactly, and the makeup. We get to bring out the cat people makeup. Apparently, the Cats was playing in the West End, or East End. Is it East End? Which is the Broadway? Because in Boston we had a West End. That's where my dad grew up. So maybe it's the East End.
Oh. Well, I know they have East End, West Ends in London, but I don't know what goes on in them.
Okay, so whatever the Broadway of London is, I've now given up my Anglophile card. So they're in this. They've come into the city, and now they're not in the big, shiny, pretty part of it that they were in before, or the Doctor was in before. Now they're in the Undercity where they arrive, and it's rainy, it's dreary. They're in some back alley where it's called Pharmacy Town, where there are street vendors hawking moods and moods and emotions. You could buy some forget or some sleep or happy. But
it's all really run down, and it's like Paradise Towers.
Right. Although I do want to back up just a bit to the teaser open, where we have this traffic nightmare in New York, and it was giving me flashbacks to when I used to have to drive to my job in Boston every day. Mm-hmm. That was horrible. I can imagine this. I was living this. But the couple in this first vehicle that's getting destroyed, attacked by some unknown creature, some unknown foe. Did you catch that? They're
clearly based on the painting American Gothic.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Yes. Although they have British accents.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, almost everybody except for Sally Calypso, which we'll get to in a few minutes, has a British accent in this New York place, which is just, it's kind of amusing to me. Why New York and not Los Angeles or Chicago or London for that matter?
Because then they get the pun of New York.
Okay, they don't have to say New London or something along those lines.
Also, I think New York is, I mean, although Los Angeles and Washington and Chicago and even Boston are major U.S. cities, New York is, especially for people internationally, the paradigmatic American city.
Right.
It's like, for me, it's the farthest north, as a Southerner, it's the farthest north city there must be.
Right.
But for Europeans, it's like, okay, New York, that's the American city you think of.
Right.
Yep.
Yes, I've been amused at times by people coming from Europe to visit Boston and saying, "Hey, can we go to New York tonight?" because they look at the map and it's
it is 4 hours away.
It's a 4-hour drive away. Or we'll go to the Grand Canyon this weekend. No, I don't have a private plane.
It's more than 4 hours away.
Yeah, much more. So
I was, by the way, I was once, so I do Morris dancing, which is a form of British folk dance. And there was a group of Morris dancers from Hammersmith in London who were touring California. And so my team got together with their team at a pub, and they were amazed at the scope of America, because they were used to like there being a pub on every corner. So with the previous team they were visiting, they had said, okay, can we go to a pub? And they're thinking like there's going to be one within a block of here.
Right.
And the other team said, oh yeah, sure. No problem. You can't miss it. You get on the freeway, you go 30 minutes, take that exit, and you're right there. And they were just stunned at the scope of all of this. So yeah.
Right. 30 minutes in Europe, you'd be in another country. So my problem with this episode, okay, I hate starting these discussions with my problem with the episode. But I mean, let me just, there is much to enjoy about this, but let me throw out my quibbles on it. Is the complete absurdity of the idea of people living in their cars while commuting in Gridlock.
For years. For years. Decades. Over a decade.
In fact, the two little ladies were in their car for 23 years. And as my wife points out to me, it's just an example of the literary style called absurdism, which it takes an idea to the extreme to explore some other idea.
We don't see that in Doctor Who ever. Is that right? Stephen Moffat.
Right. Or last week, Paradise Tower.
Paradise Towers. Yeah. I didn't have a problem with it. It is absurdist. But that's kind of a staple in a lot of, I mean, Twilight Zone would do that. A lot of sci-fi does that, where in order to get at some aspect of modern culture, it's then taken to an absurd level as kind of a way of thinking through the implications. And this episode is essentially about exploring the anguish and absurdity that you would experience, Dom, driving into Boston every day. Right.
Yeah.
Or that anyone in Los Angeles experiences every day.
Yeah. And in fact, it's sometimes it seems like I've been driving for years and years. So I get that. Yeah.
I've experienced both sides of it. I still just watching this episode and see all that traffic. I can't handle, like 4 or 5 lanes all going the same direction, one level, much less 42 levels, 45 levels, whatever it was.
Right.
Just like, that ain't happening.
Yeah. Where Father Corey lives out in Montana, I'm not sure there are 100 cars within 20 miles of you, Father Corey. Maybe maybe I'm taking that to the extreme.
But they all seem to be on our Central Avenue, or kind of our main north-south road here. The exact moment I need to get on it, but
the traffic light.
Exactly.
So the doctor keeps saying, he says to Martha, "Okay, one more trip for you, and then I'm taking you home. That's it."
He initially promised her one trip, and he took her to another time on Earth, and now he's stretching it to include another planet in the future.
And he gives her an option, like, where do you want to go? And she says, I want to go to your home planet. I want to go to Gallifrey. And he's dancing around the fact that Gallifrey, as far as he's concerned at this point, and the audience, it has been destroyed in the Time War. It's gone, and he doesn't want to talk about it. Doesn't want to tell her about it per se. And so he kind of dances around, and he gives us description of Gallifrey. The skies are burnt orange with the citadel enclosed in a muddy glass dome shining under the twin suns. Beyond that, the mountains go on forever, slopes of deep red grass capped with snow. And in fact, we see some of this later on in the 12th Doctor's time. They actually show it on screen. Did we ever see?
We've heard some of it before.
Okay, that's my question.
This is kind of new.
Oh, okay. So my question is whether this is something we had in Classic Who, because there have been stuff set on Gallifrey, but indoors, right?
Right.
The trial of Time Lord,
the invasion of time, the trial of Time Lord, things like that. We've only seen indoor Gallifrey up to this point, but we've had descriptions going back as far as at least the third Doctor's time of what it looks like outside.
Okay.
Yeah, and there was also you did see some outside scenes in the Five Doctors, but that wasn't part of Gallifrey proper. That was part of that death zone. That's the word.
Okay. So then we have the reintroduction of the face of Bo. He shows up again here with the cat lady
Novice Haim.
Novice Haim, that's right. I keep wanting to call it Cassandra, but Novice Haim. And the face of Bo is this interesting creature character.
Face.
Yeah, it's a giant face in a jar, and what if a creature was just a face? And he's apparently billions of years old. And there's this fan theory, and I think we might have brought this up before. I think we talked about Utopia.
I don't think it's a fan theory. I think it's a fact.
It was explicit.
Established on the screen.
Was it? When was that established? That this is Captain Jack Harkness's
in the far future.
Yeah, he said something.
Future.
Yeah, he said something to the extent of he was walking out. I want to say, was it the episode where all the planets, Dawn of Noble episode where all the planets were brought together, and as he's walking out, he says something to the extent of, "Yeah, on my home planet, I was known as the face of Bo."
Yeah, what he says is that he was a poster boy he was like recruiting for time agents.
Yeah,
and so he was a poster boy from Boshan province, the face of Bo, they used to call me.
Right. Yep. Okay, that's right. So it was explicit. I thought I forgot that whole bit, and that was
still a little deniability there. But unless they deny it, to me, it's established canon.
Okay, and that's the last we saw of Captain Jack, right? That we didn't see him.
Well, he's all over Torchwood.
Right.
Yeah.
But not in Doctor Who Prime, shall we say? And then we get this moment.
One of the things about Captain Jack is because of what happened to him, where he absorbed TARDIS energies and the parting of the ways and returned to life after being killed. He's now unkillable.
Right.
And so he dies repeatedly and keeps coming back, and it gets more painful each time he comes back. And the idea is in the future, he's somehow mutated into the face of Bo.
Okay. Yeah. So we have the Doctor and is talking to Martha about bringing her to this the Utopia, and Martha realizes that he's taken her to a place that he's already taken Rose, and we saw in the Shakespeare Code a moment where Martha's thinking that we're in this romantic situation, and the Doctor kind of says to her, he's not thinking romantically. Yep. He says Rose would know what to say at this moment. I mean, so the most insensitive thing he could say.
Yeah.
And she right here, she kind of says, almost to his face, but he doesn't recognize it. Or she says to his face, but he doesn't recognize it. Oh, rebound much? And
ever hear the word rebound?
Yeah. and so she feels, she's really getting the sense that she's feeling something for the Doctor that he isn't feeling for her. And that's I think this is what was established for the third season.
Yeah, and that he's kind of using her to comfort himself in the absence of Rose.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think that is going to be Martha Jones's story arc, at least in this season. And I've said before, I think it doesn't do her justice. I think it was a mistake to go this direction with her. They should have, because again, as we've talked about a lot, Doctor is my boyfriend. and she can't compete with Rose, and it's just a mistake. Which I think they go in the other direction, which is a good direction with Donna Noble. That
Exactly.
Yeah, Donna Noble has no interest in the Doctor romantically. I don't mind the arc emotionally of having the Doctor, because he did fall in love with Rose, and I don't mind seeing that. And then when obviously the companion has to leave, how do you deal with that? And exploring the rebound dimension, I think, is legitimate. What I would have done is found a better resolution, or hope to find a better resolution, because in the end, Martha Jones leaves unsatisfied.
Right.
She doesn't get to make peace with this aspect of her and the Doctor's relationship. It's always something that kind of sticks in her craw. And so I would have maybe gone in this direction, but then reversed direction and had the two of them establish, not go straight back into a romance, but had the two of them establish a friendship like the Donna Noble one.
Yeah. And I mean, we get a resolution for Martha Jones in End of Time, where right before the Doctor's regeneration, and we find out that she's now married to Mickey. Actually, I think that is
good for both of them.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty good resolution for her. So we're here in the the Undercity, and suddenly this couple emerges from the steam.
By the way, I like there being an Undercity because I mean, you think about utopias, and okay, New York has the Statue of Liberty, but it's also got other parts that aren't so nice,
slums,
and that's realistic, and I like seeing that here.
There is a bit of a plot hole, I think, or maybe I'm wrong, but there's where they later on we're told that one of these mood drugs called Bliss actually mutates and kills everyone not on the motorway.
Right, not in the Undercity.
Undercity. They say that they can they close the walkways in the motorway.
Oh,
to the Undercity.
So that's what kept Pharmacy Town and everybody there, all the mood hawkers, safe.
Okay, that's what was my question, because I guess I missed that distinction. And so Martha gets kidnapped by this couple so they can go in the HOV lane, which is, I can completely sympathize with that. As someone who was driving alone in my car to work most days, the ability to put someone in the passenger seat, maybe not against their will.
You didn't get a store mannequin?
Well, I was going to say some people have actually used store mannequins.
Exactly.
We occasionally get news stories here in Boston where people have tried various things to fool the policeman standing at the entrance to the HOV lane. It never works. They always get caught.
Well, the question is, how long does it go before they get caught?
Right. Well, that's a good question. I always worry because when I have the kids in the car and they're kind of low down in the back, I'm waiting to get pulled over because I got the kids back there.
I like how they say Martha's been carjacked. Because they reverse the meaning of carjacking that we're familiar with. Today, if someone gets carjacked, it means someone climbed into your car and forced you to go somewhere. Here, it's the people get out of their car and drag you into theirs so they can go somewhere.
And in fact, today, usually, if you're lucky, carjacking means you get kicked out of your car and your car gets taken.
Exactly.
So that's the reverse. Where is everybody going? I mean, we get some explanations, but why? Like, if you were really needed to get to 10 miles away, why don't you just walk? It would be faster than taking 6 years.
The explanation they give is, we hear it a few times, is they're going out of the city, I guess, to the suburbs in hunting in search of jobs.
Right.
They've heard that there are careers out there, that there are people hiring, and if they can get to those places, then they can establish a new life for themselves. So it's effectively like a pioneer wagon train.
Sure.
Right.
But it is absurdist. You could walk there faster.
Yeah. But for whatever reason, they don't realize that once you get on the motorway, you can't get off of it.
But they know. Right. Yeah. I mean, you could abandon the vehicle at a what do they call it? A layover.
Lay-by.
Yeah, a lay-on. I mean, you could abandon your vehicle and just walk out. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to look for the non-absurd and the absurd story. I know. I do like the design of the vehicles. They have they're hover buses, and they have this VW microbus aesthetic to them, which I did like that I found that pretty cool. The doctor, it seemed to me, got very angry, almost too angry, or it wasn't explained in the story about Pharmacy Town. When I'm coming back, you're shut down. Like, he was really mad. And I was wondering why,
this is a classic thing on Doctor Who and other sci-fi. Whenever you have drugs and recreational drugs, you have to somehow condemn them forcefully. There's a famous Tom Baker episode where there was another, I think it was by Bob Holmes. It was another kind of satire where they had a whole spaceship full of people who were like drug zombies who were just laying around, not dealing with things that needed to be dealt with. And Tom Baker has to just like over the top, forcefully, angrily condemn this drug as the worst thing in the history of the universe.
Right.
Because it's a kid's show and you can't show drug use without forcefully condemning it.
Right.
Exactly.
So the couple are Milo and Sheen. They're the classic. Sheen is pregnant and they want to go to a better life, and hopefully they'll get to Brooklyn, new Brooklyn, by the time the child is old enough to go to school. And she tells Martha that you can believe what I'm telling you. I'm wearing an honesty patch. I'm like, who would wear an honesty patch? Like, I'm so unreliable that I need to wear an honesty patch.
I could imagine a controlling lover wanting you to wear an honesty patch.
Oh my, that turns Milo much darker than he was. That is a very dark turn to the story. Because otherwise Milo just seemed completely incompetent throughout this at times.
I like how Martha tells them, you're idiots. So you're carrying a baby and you're wearing this thing, and she rips the honesty patch off of
right.
her,
Given
which
that,
is another let's take a dig at drugs.
Exactly.
Right. Given that Martha is a doctor in training, that's how a doctor would react. Sort of thing.
Although, frankly, who knows? Maybe in this century, honesty is a part of neonatal or prenatal care. Exactly. It's going to help the kid later.
It could have nutrients or something to help the kid.
Know?
Yeah.
Hey, honesty is the best policy. So, I'll one more of these, and I'll let it go. They're flying vehicles. Just fly over everything. Never mind. Okay, never mind. 6 years to go 10 miles.
Because they're sealed in the Undercity.
Right. Okay. So we find out it's 6 years to go 10 miles on the fast lane. 12 years to go 5 miles. That's what we find out from Brannigan, Thomas Kincaid Brannigan, who's a cat Irish person, and his wife Valerie. I have to say, Brannigan is the high point of this episode for me. I really like Brannigan.
He's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Another actor he's another actor you might recognize. You ever see the series Father Ted?
I've seen it.
Yeah,
but I don't know it well.
So Father Ted was a kind of a British. I think it's from Britain. A series of basically misfit priests. Father Ted is kind of the pastor of this parish. He was sent out there because he had a gambling problem. There's the old, basically senile, crotchety, doesn't give a rat's behind priest, and then there's a young priest who's he's got some interesting ideas. Same actor. The character's name is Father Dougal McGuire. It was played by Ardal O'Hanlon. The same actor who plays Hannigan or Brannigan.
Okay. Brannigan.
Oh, interesting. Didn't know that. I wouldn't have recognized him under the very surprisingly realistic cat makeup.
Yeah, they did a good job on the cat makeup in this. That's for sure.
And
especially with the children.
Oh yeah, really realistic there.
Well, I love the line as the doctor's leaping from their car. He says to Valerie, because he's leaping into the pollution, into this pit, which is like a bottomless pit, essentially. If it's any consolation to you, right now I'm having kittens, he says.
Yeah. I love how even though Brannigan, a cat man, is married to a human woman, their children are a litter of literal kittens. I mean, just they picked them up at a pet store or something.
Yes. Don't look, kids. At what's the bad things. 5 billion years in the future, and they still have polluting cars. Just gonna say that right now. And
this is one of those episodes you need to use the MST3 mantra. MST3K mantra. It's just a show. I should really just relax.
Okay. Well, that's yes, I will accept that and skip over my next comment about that then. What if the traffic jam never stops? What if there's nothing but the motorway and cars going round and round forever? I mean, that's Martha kind of throws it out there, and it's one of the trope has a negative connotation, but it's not a bad thing in this case. But it's one of the standard features of a story like this is someone from the outside who comes in to point out the absurdity of the situation to the people in it.
Sure.
Like,
because you're the frog, you've been boiled slowly and you don't realize it.
Exactly. And so that's what she presents to Milo and Sheen. Like, what if this, because they go in the fast lane, but all the exits are closed and they can't get off, and so they keep going round and round even in the fast lane. And that's what she says. Like, what if you never can get off? What if it's a Sisyphean task you've been given to go round and round?
And thus we hit the ultimate extension of an literally endless traffic jam.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Endless gridlock in to use the title. And so so then we encounter on the bottom of the fast lane is the lowermost level. Fewest people go down there. And while they're down there, they start to hear these noises.
And you're not allowed to go to the fast lane unless you have 3 adults on board.
Right,
and your car will not take you there because it's an automated system.
Right. And that's why they kidnapped Martha. And so while they're down there, the gas is so thick they can't see out, but they're hearing these noises, and Milo's in denial. That's just the air vents. Martha points out, if there were working air vents, would there be this much pollution out there? And they start to encounter these creatures. They can't see them yet. And then there comes this point where it's a very surreal moment where everyone starts singing the Old Rugged Cross and crying. Yeah. And I'm like, what's going on here? Even Martha starts crying, and I'm like, what's going on?
So Sally Calypso, or whatever her name is, the holographic traffic narrator, like on a radio station, except with video.
Yeah.
I mean, we have traffic stations in big cities.
Yes.
As someone who comes from a small town, I didn't know that, but they do. So if you're in if you're stuck in traffic, you can tune in a big city to the local traffic station, and they will talk about what the traffic is doing and what your best options are. And they'll do little other things to distract you from the traffic. And that's essentially Sally Calypso's job. She is a holographic traffic analyst and she's always giving people bad news, but giving it to them in a way that tries to keep their spirits up. And she's expressing sympathy for them. And then at this one moment in the day, she has the daily meditation. And it turns out to be the hymn, The Old Rugged Cross. And this is not dissimilar to things that, I don't know how they do these things on British radio and television, but here in America, they would have, like, back in the day, as part of public service announcements, they might have a daily reflection of a kind of meditative, maybe even prayerful nature. And so I thought the use of the Old Rugged Cross in this was awesome.
Yeah.
I loved having, this is the thing that binds these people together in their misery of this never-ending traffic jam. This hymn, which is an explicitly Christian hymn, gives them hope. Yeah. And it's very moving. And even Martha starts to be moved by it. And I think she even starts to mouth parts of the words.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. You kind of mentioned those daily devotions. They actually do that on the radio station here. Now, of course, Malta is a small town. We have one locally owned radio station. And the Ministerial Association that I'm a part of does a daily devotion. So like last week, as we recorded this, was my turn. So on, Monday through Friday mornings at, 6:45, we would have this devotion played or read. Sometimes I'll go into the radio station, actually read it on the air, but so it's still something that's done on occasion. It's not common. You're definitely not going to find it on your typical corporate multi-station radio stations.
Not in the big cities. Yeah.
Well, when you go in next time, you should sing The Old Rugged Cross as an in-joke for all of the fans of Secrets of Doctor Who live in Malta, Montana.
So, myself.
In-joke for yourself. It always works for me.
Yeah, exactly.
I laugh at my own jokes. So, in case people are not familiar, The Old Rugged Cross is an American hymn. It was written by American evangelist George Bernard in 1912, and has been very popular here ever since, and recorded by everybody and his brother.
Yeah,
it seems like.
I'm just amazed that and delighted that in modern secular Britain, this is one of the differences between the way religion gets handled in British television and American television. In American television, you wouldn't have a Christian hymn casually dropped into an episode in the way this is.
Right.
But here you do, and I'm delighted. I mean, I don't know what Russell T. Davies' religion is. I know he's not on board with traditional Christian values.
Right.
But for them to include this dramatically and make it work and have it be this beautiful moment, they deserve props for that, including Russell T. Davies deserves props.
And your explanation of like the daily devotion as part of their way of helping people cope, in this traffic jam, and keeping them placated in one sense, is that's a good explanation of why it was included in the plot line of the story itself. And it is kind of a nice moment to include this and the hymn that's at the end, and we'll talk about that when we get to the end. That there's a second hymn that's sung at the end of the episode. So we have the old rugged cross, and the lyrics are interesting, by the way. Just the bit we hear: on the hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. And I love that old cross where the dearest and best for a world of lost sinners was slain. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. I mean, it doesn't get more explicitly Christian than that. And it might be part of the fact
you could mention the word Jesus,
it could. But I probably should have
figuratively, it doesn't get any more explicit than that.
Right. And it probably has something to do with the fact that there is in British culture, maybe more so than American culture, a civic religion, that Christianity is still alive, even among those who don't practice.
There's a Church of England.
Right. And it has some bearing in daily life, even for those who don't profess.
Sort of the paradox is that Americans tend to be much more actively religious.
Right.
And these days, unfortunately, in England, most Britons tend to be less religious, but they're more relaxed about it in their media. Whereas Americans who take their religion much more seriously are more uptight about it.
Right.
In their religions. And I suspect that there's a kind of, I'm not quite sure how to articulate the psychology of it, but I think precisely because we're more serious about religion, we're more uptight about how it's presented in media. Whereas in Britain, because they're more relaxed, they're more relaxed about how it gets presented in media. Yeah,
that makes sense. That comes across. So the doctor, as I mentioned before, he's going to go find Martha in the traffic jam, and he's going to start hopping from car to car. He takes off his trench coat in Brannigan's car, presumably because it's impeding him somehow, and says, "Take care of that coat. I'll come back for that." And he says, "I love that coat. Janis Joplin gave it to me." And
name drop.
Yeah, name drop. Janis Joplin
13th wasn't the first to do that.
He was the she. Janis Joplin was a famous American rock star, singer, 60s and 70s, who died tragically.
Everyone in the year 5 billion is going to remember.
Yeah,
there's a lot of the year 5 billion that seems like it lasted. We find out that the creature at the bottom of the motorway are giant crabs.
I like, though, first on his way down, we get to the bottom layer. We get this montage of the doctor briefly hopping into a bunch of different people's cars,
right?
And we get to see what they're all doing and what kind of different lives they're leading, and it's just a fun sequence.
And wearing and not wearing, and
yeah.
Yes, I mean there was
there is one where they're a little scantily clad, but we don't really see anything. But others, I mean, like there's the man who's preternaturally albino. Yeah. There's a man who's preternaturally red. There's a businessman with a classic city bowler.
Well, I love where the doctor, he started out, was it a motorway customer service or something like that, or customer survey
inspection
and by the time he got to the bottom, he says, forget it.
Yeah, there's the Asian girls, two girls who are Asian. There was the nudists and so on and so forth. Until he got to the gent at the bottom, which I'd seen somewhere that it was a reference to a character. I'm trying to think here. Sorry, I should have made note, and I thought I was going to. It was modeled after the character Max Normal from Judge Dredd comics.
Okay,
so interesting.
I've read some Judge Dredd. I haven't read Max Normal, but I took him as the standard city businessman in England.
Very proper.
The city means London proper.
Yep.
And it's a financial center. And so there's a kind of uniform that's classically associated for businessmen going there, including not just the suit, but also a bowler hat and like an umbrella.
Right. And so at the bottom, as the doctor's now, that's the last level before the fast lane at the bottom of the motorway. We find out that he manages to use the sonic and whatever to turn on the air vents to suck out the exhaust and see what's down there, and it turns out to be hundreds of giant crabs. Click, click, click.
Really giant crabs.
Yeah, like big enough to
snap. Their claws are so huge that one of the hover cars, one of the minibuses is tiny compared to one of their claws.
Right, so the claws are like the size of a house. I mean, they're huge. Bigger. And he says they're Macra. Okay, so this is a Classic Who reference, so I defer to you guys to enlighten me as to what are the Macra.
So the Macra are a crab monster that dates from the time of Patrick Troughton's Second Doctor. They were originally seen, obviously, then in black and white in a series called the Macra Terror.
Yep.
And that is a series that exists only in fragments.
Yep. Although not for long. It was announced again just before we recorded this, but it still hasn't been released when you listen to it, that they're redoing it in animation style like they did with The Power of the Daleks and Shada, and going to be re-releasing it with the original audio in March is the date, at least as we record this. Now, it might slip between when you hear it or not. And of course, it might be the kind of thing too where it releases in March in Great Britain and not till like Christmas time here in the States. So
Boo.
But either way, we'll get to see the Macra in their original form before they became giant car-eating crabs.
Yeah, and also they were intelligent before, which they allude to in this episode. They never mentioned the Patrick Troughton episode, but the Doctor does mention they used to be empire builders, and the businessman says, well, they don't look like they're building an empire now. And he says, yeah, it's been billions of years. They must have devolved into just being brutes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which is, I mean, given the time span, that's entirely possible that they could devolve that. And the original Macra, they used humans as sort of cattle, right? Is that what it was?
The humans mined natural gas that the Macra ate. So of course, the pollutants from the car would be perfect for them.
Yeah. And by the way, you can, not only can you read a novelization of the Macra Terror, but you could also, the audio does exist and you can watch it or listen to it in audiobook form now if you don't want to wait for the animation. Once the animation comes out, and as soon as we can have copies of it here in our American hands, we will be doing it here on Secrets of Doctor Who, because it'll be some new-ish Who that we get to do before the next season comes out.
Exactly.
Yes, that'll be good. Yes, I'm looking forward to that one. It's interesting that they decided to throw them in here. I mean, it's sort of it seems kind of random, a random inclusion of these classic Who villains in a way that doesn't match what they were. But I just thought it was interesting.
You have the gas tie-in.
Exactly.
And they wanted a monster for this to create drama and threat. So
Okay.
Let's use one from the past.
Yeah, it's a good. I like when they do that. It creates a world that that feels larger. So we have Novice Haim shows up again. She's the gun wielding cat nun, which I just love that. But just as the doctor's about to, he's at the bottom of about to head down to get Martha Jones. Novice Haim abducts him using a teleport device to take him to the face of Bo. They arrive in the upper city, which is in ruins. Obviously
the doctor immediately says, "Go get Martha."
Yes.
Yeah.
And which would end the plot right there. Well, it wouldn't really, but it would derail one of the things they're holding back.
Yep.
And so, of course, convenience, lazy plotting. I only had the power for one trip.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Well,
get some more, he then says, which is the exactly what you would say.
Recharge it.
She ran out of double A's. She doesn't have any more.
So we're in the Senate chamber where there are skeletons everywhere in all the seats. People apparently died where they were sitting.
24 years ago.
Yeah, everyone died of bliss, as they say. Very interesting symbolism there. The bliss was one of the mood altering drugs, and it carried a
super virus.
Yeah, a mutated super virus that wiped out everyone within the matter of minutes, and were only saved by a last minute closing as we said before, the access to the Undercity, and that saved the people in the Undercity.
Right. So it's actually for their own good that the people are stuck in this endless traffic jam, which casts a new light on trying to keep their moods up, and keep their morale up. We are trying to help them. We're not trying to manipulate them. We're trying to keep them alive. And keep them as happy as can be in that situation.
That was interesting the way the nurse put it, where it was, we didn't condemn them. We aren't condemning them to this. We saved them.
Yeah.
That's language of salvation.
I kind of had a problem with that, which is it's more of a worldview problem, not so much with the plotting, but a worldview which says we save people by deceiving them. Like they're too stupid to understand what needs to be done to not die. So we save them by feeding this line and keeping them in the dark, literally, and telling them lies. And that's, for any type of government, and essentially the face of Bo has become their government or their ruler. Because he controls their lives.
With Novice Haim as the executive branch.
Exactly. That's a problematic attitude about things, and they didn't really explore that. That might have been an interesting place to go with it if they had the time. But the idea that we did it for your own good. I would have liked to have seen some of the people who had been stuck on the motorway for decades kind of reject that, going, well, it would have been nice for me to have had that opportunity. Exactly. Maybe you could have just let me hang out in the Undercity instead of in this cramped car for 20 years. So it's an interesting perspective.
I also, and this I did not have a problem with. They said, so Haim says that the city died in 7 minutes, and the last act of the Senate was to declare the planet unsafe, thus triggering an automatic 100-year quarantine.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which is why they can't, just because the doctor makes the point, there are other planets out there. Why don't you appeal to them? And the answer is we're under quarantine. And that actually makes sense.
Right.
Even the fact that now the virus has died, so it's actually safe. You can imagine saying a health organization saying, I'm sorry, once you've had a planet killing disaster, we're just not going, even if you think it's safe, we're not going in for 100 years.
Right. And of course, they don't have a Senate to overrule the automatic quarantine either. If they would say, okay, if your Senate votes that, yes, this virus is dead, it's safe to come back, that's fine. They don't have a Senate to do that. So the quarantine is still in place.
Right. There is an interesting moment where Martha with Milo and Sheen are she thinks, she's about to die. They're trying to evade the Macra by run silent, run deep strategy where they turn everything off. And facing death, she realizes that no one in her life knows where she is. She doesn't know where she is. And she doesn't even know who the doctor is, and yet she's run off with him. And she's come to this realization, like, what am I doing here?
Yeah,
which is an interesting character moment. Yeah, it is nice to
very much a parallel with Rose, because Rose went through much the same thing in the second episode, the episode at the end of the earth. The same kind of thing of, my mom doesn't know where I'm at, and I don't know who this guy is. I just ran off with him, and that kind of stuff.
Right. There's that. I think it's a necessary moment for a character to go through, a companion to go through, to kind of say, wait a minute, what am I doing? This charismatic individual has dropped into my life and taken me away from everything and put my life in danger. Because that's what the audience is thinking. Like I get the attraction, but wow.
Yeah, it is nice. It's psychologically realistic. Unfortunately, they undermine it a bit, because Martha then decides she has faith in the doctor. Right. And she tells Milo and Sheen, you've got your faith and your songs and your hymns, and what I've got is the doctor. And this is actually a theme that we've had in Doctor Who for a while, of faith in the doctor, almost in a religious sense. There was a famous story in Sylvester McCoy's time, where in order to defeat an enemy, he had to crush the faith that his companion Ace had in him. And that's the only way to defeat the enemy, is to crush Ace's faith in him. And it was very disturbing to see that. Personally, I understand the doctor is our protagonist. He's our hero character. He's in some ways a Christ figure. But I don't like it when they start getting explicit about faith in the doctor as if it's a religious thing.
Right. Yeah, that is uncomfortable. And because what happens is then we have to discount the importance of of people's actual faith, their Christian faith, or make it equate it somehow to the faith in the doctor. And that's
and they also don't set it up right, because they've just had Martha saying, I don't know anything about this guy. Well, then why do you have faith in him?
Right. Because he's
got a cool police box.
And he's cute. I hate to say it, but that's kind of how she comes across.
Yeah, exactly.
So we lead up to this moment. The face of Bo has to sacrifice his life to save the people of the motorway, to get the doors open so the people can escape out of the motorway into the fresh air. And there's this prophecy that at the end of his life of billions of years, the face of Bo has one final secret to reveal to the traveler, which of course is the doctor.
And the doctor's really trying to keep this prophecy from being fulfilled.
Right. He doesn't want him to tell him this secret. Maybe because he's in denial and doesn't want the face of Bo to die, or maybe he doesn't. He's afraid of what the prophecy says. But the prophecy is, "You are not alone." And we're immediately supposed to take that as he's not the last Time Lord. In fact, that's how I took it when I first heard this.
And that's what it means.
Yeah, I mean, although you could say you're not alone. There are people who love you and care for you. I mean that.
Well, they immediately quash that with the scene with Martha about, he means that I was here. No, sorry, that's not
got me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got to say, David Tennant does a really good job with delivering that line, because
being a jerk.
Right. I mean, he could have delivered it as a jerk, but he kind of has that facial expression where, I'm sorry, that's very nice of you, but that's not what he meant.
I don't think that's what he means.
Right. Whereas, like, I could just imagine Colin Baker delivering it as, no, don't be silly, you silly girl.
Yeah.
That would be how he delivered it.
I would. It comes across, though, as you're not that special.
Yep.
And no matter how he says the line, and so to me, just on the script level, the line makes him look like a jerk, which is okay. The doctor can be a jerk.
Yeah.
But if I had been in that situation, I would have said maybe.
Right.
I do like where Martha basically at that point basically just grabs a chair and says, "Okay, I'm not leaving until you talk to me like an adult."
Yeah. This
Yes.
is I love that sequence because he's saying, "Okay, let's go," and she grabs a chair and sits down, and he says, "You're staying," and he's kind of like threatening to leave her here,
Yeah.
Right.
on this trip that he's agreed to take her on, and she's puts smashes back at him and says, "Yes, until you talk to me properly."
Right. Right. Because he has been, even the last like 2 or 3 episodes, has been very kind of cavalier with her, just kind of going along and leaving her in the dark about things.
And even he has admitted that in this episode that he earlier he was talking about how he was showing off to Martha and even lied to her about Gallifrey. Yep. And so he now sits down, and as we begin to pull back the camera from them, he starts to tell her the story of the Time War and thus really talk to her honestly about what's important to him.
Right. And then as the episode ends, we have the sunset over the upper city of New York, and the all of the cars from the motorway flying through the air to the city that is now alive again. And we hear this choir somewhere singing this other hymn, another Christian hymn. That's 2 in this episode. "Abide with Me," which is another beautiful. I don't know if it's one of my favorites, but it's one I really like in itself. This one is by a Scottish Anglican, Henry Francis Lyte, and this is much older. It's from the early 19th century or mid 19th century, I guess. Written by Lyte as he was dying from tuberculosis.
Ooh.
It gives an interesting perspective on this hymn when you know that.
Mm-hmm.
So it alludes to abide with me, alludes to Luke 24:29. Abide with us, for it is toward evening, and the day is far spent. So that is
the Emmaus Road encounter.
The Emmaus Road encounter, and then the penultimate verse is a reference to 1 Corinthians 15. "O death, where's thy sting? O grave, where's thy victory?" So nice. It's a hopeful in the face of tragedy and death, which is how this episode ends. I mean, there was tragedy and death in this city, but there's hope for in a future. It's a little bit of a secular hope, I guess, but we'll take it where we can get
exactly
references.
You can operate on more than one level, and we also have "Abide with Me" now. Now that Martha and the Doctor have learned to be honest with each other, they can abide together.
That's true. That is another level on which to take that. Yes. So that's what I have for notes. Just turn it over to you, Father Corey. Do you have any other points you'd like to bring up?
Just got a kick out of some of the terms they used, because they talked about, very British terms. They talked about being on a motorway.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here in the States, we would say expressway or freeway or tollway or interstate, of course, because our
highway.
Yeah, highway. Interstate system's what we call it. And then they used, Brannigan picked up the Doctor at a lay-by. We would call that, like a shoulder or a pull out or something like that.
Right.
So
right.
it's just, I just kind of got a kick out of that.
Even a rest stop.
Yeah. So Jimmy, do you have anything left?
Only other note I had was on Brannigan and his interaction with the Cassini sisters. The Cassini sisters are a pair of old ladies, one of whom is a motor spotter. So she's the equivalent of a train spotter or a plane spotter, and she has detailed records of all of the cars that have been sighted in the motorway going back years and years and years. Yep. So she provides a crucial function in the plot of providing information about how the motorway works. Like when the Doctor presses her, she tries to avoid admitting no one has ever, neither she nor her other motor spotter buddies have ever seen a police car.
Right.
And that's part of the evidence that the police are not going to come help you. But she also helps the Doctor find out the identity of the car that Martha is in. And so she's got an important role in the plot. She and the other Cassini sister are on Brannigan's friend list. You need to have someone on your friend list in order to call them car to car. And which is actually kind of similar. I mean, if you're driving today and you want to call someone on your hands-free phone in your car, then you need to have their phone number.
That's true.
So that's pretty realistic. But he's got them listed in his contacts as the Cassini sisters.
Right.
And when he gets through to them, the first sister we talk to makes it clear, we're not really sisters. We're married.
Right.
And so this was before gay marriage was legal in Britain.
Yep.
And so this is, some of the Russell T. Davies and his politics peeking through into the show, but it's handled very lightly. And Brannigan's response is, "Oh, you with that new fashioned talk, I'm an old cat."
Yeah.
Right.
And we've got the play on words like cat being an old slang word for like a hipster.
Yeah.
I'm an old fashioned cat. And given that he's Irish, I'm surprised he didn't say I'm an old fashioned cat lick.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been funny. Okay, great. So I think that's all we have for this episode then. I want to finish up by asking folks to remember to like the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page. We have a Facebook page, and to like this episode when it gets posted there, when you see it there, and to retweet it on Twitter if you're on Twitter as well. That helps to get the message out about this show. To make sure you leave comments if you have any comments or feedback. We love to read your feedback in the show. If you're not subscribed, if you're just listening to this by happenstance,
happenchance. I love that. What great Kang slang.
Oh gosh. Oh yes, the Kangs. Subscribe to it in iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or on YouTube, where if you subscribe there, make sure you hit the bell to get notifications when we post a new episode. And above all, please share the podcast with your friends to help us grow our community, reach more listeners. Also, if you can go and give us a review on iTunes or any other of the podcast directories, that helps a lot. We've got some nice reviews there in the past. We haven't had any recently, so we'd love to get some more and keep that going so that it stays in people's notice. That's it from us.
It's really important that you share the podcast now that the new season is over.
Yes.
Because, the new season brought a new attention to the program Doctor Who and thus to the podcast. Now we're going into the long dark between seasons. We're still going to be here helping you enjoy episodes from the past and interesting things to learn and think about Doctor Who. But it's going to be harder for us to attract new people to listen without your help. So we really need your help, especially now that we're between seasons.
Definitely. That's true. So let us know what you thought of this 10th Doctor story, Gridlock, and you can do that by going to sqpn.com, just to slow that down a bit, or to our Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, and leave us some feedback, or send an email to drwho@sqpn.com. And you can find links to our personal social media and websites on the show notes on our website. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the first Doctor story, or a story of the first Doctor, called The Censorites. Until then, Father Corey Stika, thank you for joining me in sharing the Secrets of Doctor Who.
Glad to be here, and thanks, Tom.
And Jimmy Aiken, thank you as well.
And I'm sending my return thanks to you telepathically the way Susan gets to in The Censorites.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest. And remember, the weather is at 36 degrees and it's blue skies all the way home. This is Sally Calypso signing off, missing you already.
Right. This is good.